So today I'm going to be looking at a few hints to help you on the angle relationships maze. So the first question I want to look at is one that's kind of on the lower left-hand side. It says that two angles are in the ratio of 5 to 4. So if you haven't worked with ratios recently, you may not remember that what a ratio means is that things are changing in proportion to one another. So an example of this ratio could be that if that I have, say, 5 cookies for every 4 donuts. And if it's in a ratio, it means that it's locked into this comparison. So what this means is that if I ended up with 10 cookies, I would have to have, since this is twice as many cookies, twice as many donuts. Or if I had, say, 40 cookies, well, this is 5 times 4, so I have to have 5 times 8, sorry. I'd have to have 4 times 8, so I'd have to have 32 donuts. So just keeping it within a constant ratio proportion to itself, okay? So when we're looking at these ratios, one way that you can look at ratios is to think about that it's the numbers times the same thing. So in this case, it was 5 times 2 to get 10, so you need 4 times 2 to get 8. Anytime that you're working with ratios, you're going to have to keep those numbers multiplied by the same thing to stay in ratio. So when I'm talking about these angles, I can talk about one being 5x and the other being 4x. And if I just keep that number the same that I'm plugging in for x, then those are going to be in proportion. So when I'm looking at this, the other thing that I know from the problem is that when those angles are added together, they equal 90 degrees. So I'm going to add these and set them equal to 90, which makes a very easy equation to solve, hopefully. So this is where you're going to go from here and figure out what x is. Now keep in mind here, it asks you how large is the larger. So once you find x, that's not the measurement of the angles, you then have to plug it back in and figure out, well, what is the measure of the 5x angle? All right, the second problem I want to look at is on the top left-hand corner. Okay, and this one says that two angles form a linear pair. One is 6 less than twice the other. Find the measure of the smaller angle. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set it up and I'm going to let one of my angles be x. So I'm just going to say that angle 1 is equal to x. And I'm not sure whether this is the smaller or the larger just yet, but we'll see. Now the other thing that I know is that, and this is going to be the other angle here. I'm going to let this be that other angle. So I know that my other angle in question here, let's make that angle 2, is 6 less than twice the other. So I need to be able to show 6 less than twice this other angle, or angle 1. So to do twice, I'm going to do 2 times x, and then to do 6 less, that's minus 6. So 2x minus 6 is the other angle. Now, the other piece of information that I have here that's very important is that they form a linear pair. And remember that linear pairs are angles that share a vertex and a side, and they form a line. They are supplementary, they add up to 180 degrees. So I can say that 2x minus 6 plus x equals 180. From here, you're going to want to solve for x, and then just like the last problem, you're going to want to plug that back into each of these and figure out which one is the smaller, which should be pretty easy to do based off the fact this one's x and this one is 2x minus 6. All right. The only other problems on here that are not visual problems, because it seems like the visual ones go a little bit easier, there's one at the bottom where you should be able to kind of reason your way through it. And there's one over on the right-hand side, right below the end here box. And for that one, I would recommend that you draw out the situation. That when it says that B forms a linear pair with A, draw angle A, and then draw angle B so that it forms a linear pair. And then when it says that C forms a vertical angle with B, well, we know that these have to share a vertex if they're vertical, and their sides have to form straight lines, and they can't touch anywhere else. So that tells you where C is, and then if you put in some numbers and do some calculations, you can figure out what C is pretty easily. If you have further questions about anything on this worksheet or either of these two problems I just briefly touched on, let me know, and I can either get out a new video or I can send you some more personalized assistance on getting through this.